Hello guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. True God in Another World, Tensura x Tbate, by Tempest_King_20. Chapter 12, The Slaves. Rimuru. So you live here? I asked Lloyd in surprise, taking in the dilapidated state of the house. The structure appeared abandoned, with large cracks running through the walls. Despite some attempts to patch it up, it seemed like it could collapse at any moment. Lloyd nodded enthusiastically, a bright smile spreading across his face. As we walked towards the house, he filled me in on some more details about his life. At 5 years old, he was older than me, though mentally speaking, I was older. He explained that he shared this house with others who were in a similar situation, struggling to make ends meet. They would often do odd jobs or tasks in exchange for money or food, but it was never enough to truly sustain them. "I'm back," Lloyd announced as we entered the house. Surprisingly, the interior was much cleaner than I had expected, despite the presence of old and broken furniture. "Ah, Lloyd, you're finally here," exclaimed a young girl's voice. She appeared to be around 10 years old, with fair skin, long red hair flowing down her back, and fiery red eyes. She stood at an average height, dressed in slightly worn clothes. The girl approached Lloyd, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Didn't I tell you not to be late? They didn't do anything to you, did they?" "Geez, Kyla, he's obviously okay," said a boy who looked like the girl. With long red hair tied back, and sharp red eyes, he seemed to be Kyla's twin. Then he turned his eyes towards me and began examining me curiously. After Kyla realized that the boy was looking at me, she turned her attention to me. "Oh, sorry about that. I was just so worried about Lloyd that I didn't even notice you," Kyla apologized, stepping closer to me and extending a hand. "Nice to meet you, I'm Kyla Fander." "Nice to meet you too, I'm Rimuru," I replied, shaking her hand. Kyla nodded, and then her older brother, Kyle, stepped forward. He also extended his hand towards me. "I'm Kyle Fander, Kyla's older brother. Nice to meet you, Rimuru. If you don't mind me asking, what brings you here?" "It's all right. I was just curious about where Lloyd lives and wanted to offer this as a gesture," I responded, activating my ring and retrieving the sack of sausages. "I don't know if it's enough for all of you, but please accept it as an apology for intruding." Kyla smiled warmly. Placing a hand on my back, she gently pushed me. "You didn't have to do that, but if you insist on giving, then you can join us for dinner." I nodded gratefully, and Kyla led me towards their kitchen, where 2 little girls were sitting at the table. "Lena, Anna, introduce yourselves to our guest," Kyle said to the 2 girls. The first girl got up from her chair to approach me. She had dark blue hair and vibrant violet eyes. "Hi, I'm Anna. Nice to meet you," she greeted cheerfully, a bright smile adorning her face. The second girl had silver white hair and silver purple eyes. She seemed a bit shy as she stood up and introduced herself. "Hi, I'm Lena. Nice to meet you," she said softly. "Hi Anna, Lena. I'm Rimuru. Nice to meet you too," I replied warmly. We all took our seats at the table and began eating. I took out some bread from my dimensional ring and offered it to them. Suddenly, Kyle's eyes widened in surprise as he looked at me. Hold on. Why didn't we focus on this earlier?" he exclaimed. "You can use mana?" I nodded, acknowledging their surprised expressions. "Yeah, my brother and I awakened our mana core early on. It's surprising that you're mentioning it now. But anyway, what did Kyla mean by they earlier?" Kyle's voice was heavy with emotion as he spoke, his eyes flickering with a mix of sadness and anger. "They were people who held a grudge against our father. He was an A-class adventurer who rose in ranks quickly, and that made some B-class adventurers jealous. Unfortunately, our father passed away while exploring the Beast Glades. As an act of revenge, they tried to kidnap us. We managed to escape, but they recently found us again. I negotiated with them to leave us alone in exchange for money. However, things have been getting more complicated recently, and we're not sure how much longer we can keep them at bay." There was a brief exchange of glances between Kyle and the other children before he turned to me. "They started pestering us again because we couldn't get enough money," he said, his voice tinged with frustration. Suddenly, A deafening shout came from outside the ramshackle house, piercing the already tense atmosphere. "Hey Kyle, graduate before we bring the house down on you." A menacing voice threatened. The other children flinched at the threat, their fear palpable. "Yeah, we don't want to go into this dirty house after all, ha ha ha," another voice sneered, echoing the cruelty that seemed to permeate the air. Kyle's voice quivered as he spoke, a newfound determination emerging amidst his tremors. "Stay here, and don't come out to them no matter what," he instructed the other children, a strong sense of protectiveness emanating from his words. His gaze shifted back to me, a hint of apology in his eyes. "Sorry for dragging you into our matters, Rimuru, but I want you to stay here with them." As if compelled by some unseen force, Kyle moved towards the kitchen, the clinking of a dagger catching my attention. With quick, practiced movements, he retrieved the weapon, his hand gripping it tightly with an anticipation of impending danger. Without hesitation, he stepped out of the house, his small frame seemingly swallowed by the intimidating presence of the approaching adults. Sylvia, clearly struck by Kyle's actions, praised him fervently. Less than what a brave kid, to go out in front of the adults and try to defend his little sister and the kids with them. Greater than, she exclaimed, her voice filled with genuine admiration. I nodded in agreement, my heart swelling with respect for the young boy who displayed such courage in the face of danger. I nodded in agreement, my mind racing with thoughts and plans. Greater than I expect that these people belong to the slave traders, so I will take information from them before heading to their hideout. Less than I conveyed to Sylvia, determination lacing my voice. As I pondered my next steps, my gaze shifted towards the larger picture, encompassing the entire human kingdom of Sapin. A sense of frustration and discontent welled up within me, fueled by the countless problems plaguing this realm. Poverty, theft, murder, and the abhorrent trade of human lives seemed to infest every corner, and it was abundantly clear that the king had forgotten his duty to his subjects. A heavy sigh escaped my lips, carrying with it the weight of my disappointment. I couldn't help but be overcome by the inherent arrogance that flowed through the veins of many humans, particularly those wielded power. Their sense of entitlement and superiority, born solely out of their birthright, sickened me to the core. The belief that they were chosen and blessed by some divine authority only further fueled my disdain. More and more, it became painfully clear that most kings were ill-equipped to occupy the throne. They lacked the intelligence, the strength, and the compassion needed to truly lead. Their reigns were marked by self-serving desires and orders, executed solely to inflate their own egos and pride. And in their neglect of the welfare of their people, they created a fertile ground for the growth of crime, from petty theft to heinous acts of violence like kidnapping, rape, murder, and the despicable trade of human lives. In the face of the king's apathy, a silent vow began to take shape within my heart. I pledged to eradicate the threats that plagued this kingdom, not out of some altruistic inclination or a misguided sense of justice, but driven by a fierce love and protectiveness for my family who called these lands their home. The mere thought of harm befalling them ignited a burning determination within me, spurring me on to eliminate anything that posed even the slightest threat. My gaze shifted towards Kyle, who exhibited a potential hidden within his innocent soul. As my eyes lingered on him, a spark of hope flickered deep within me, and a faint smile tugged at the corners of my lips. If he were to grow up under my guidance, I saw the possibility of a formidable ally, a strong-willed individual who could help bring about change. Naturally, I felt compelled to extend my helping hand, not just out of a sense of altruism, but driven by the understanding that his growth and development could greatly benefit us both in the battles ahead. Anna's voice trembled as she asked, "Are we going to be okay?" Her question hung heavy in the air, unanswered. The room was tense, and the silence was deafening. Kyla tried to reassure her, "Don't worry, Kyle will take care of it," but her words held a hint of uncertainty. I patted Anna's head, trying to calm her down, then I stood up and said, "Don't worry, I'll help Kyle." I headed for the door, but Kayla grabbed my shoulder. "What are you doing? Kyle told us to stay inside. It's dangerous to go out." Kayla's voice was firm as she tried to stop me. The others nodded in agreement. I sighed and used fire mana to light a little flame in my palm. Don't forget that I am a mage. Eliminating people like them is not a difficult task for me, I said, making her hesitantly let go of my shoulder. I gave them a reassuring smile before I walked out of the house. Outside, a group of unsavory individuals huddled together, whispering amongst themselves. "Brother, how about we have some fun with them before we..." But he paused when he caught sight of me. Oh bro, looking at this looks so noble, we'll probably get a lot of money selling him. The other trash chuckled sinisterly, ho ho, maybe the boss will reward us for that. They turned their gaze to me with disgust before giving a sickening smile. Take him and make sure nothing happens to his face. Kyle looked at them confused before turning his gaze to me. Rimuru? What are you doing here? I told you to stay inside. Kyle stood protectively in front of me. You stay behind and I'll take care of them. I shrugged and said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. Kyle took a combative stance and prepared to strike back if anyone approached them. But the moving trash just laughed as if he was mocking Kyle. It was almost impossible for Kyle to win against them. I approached them until the difference between them and me was about 7 meters. Ha ha ha. Do you think you are a hero or something, kid? Said the trash as he approached me and then reached out to catch me. Be an obedient child and listen to what the grown-ups say, he said with a disgusting smile. I sighed and condensed a blade of wind into my hand behind my back. As his hand came close to grabbing me, I cut it off at a speed that a normal person could not notice. The trash fell to his knees and started screaming even more. Annoying. I muttered under my breath as I quickly cut off his head. The people present were still in shock over what happened. Not only that a 4-year-old child used magic, but he had easily killed an adult without batting an eyelid. I took advantage of this opportunity and headed over to the other trash who was still alive. I stabbed him in the stomach and then moved my hand and cut his stomach open. Saw how his friends died quickly. The other person tried to escape, but I ran towards him and then jumped and reached his height before kicking him behind his head. He fell unconscious on the ground. Kyle, who was looking at me in shock, shook his head and walked towards me. So what are we going to do with the bodies? He asked, looking at the bodies unconcerned with the fact that a child had easily killed adults. Kyle gave me a look of confusion at my silence before I say, is this the first thing you say after you saw a 4-year-old kill 2 people? He just nodded. Sigh. I will take care of the bodies. Don't let anyone out. He nodded and then turned his gaze to the fainted trash. I have some uses for him, so I let him live, but I will kill him as soon as I finish. Well, if you need help, just call me. He said. Then he went towards the house, and when he entered the house I went to the bodies and brought them close to each other before I poured some flammable materials on their bodies and then I burned them. The flames danced wildly as they consumed the corpses, leaving nothing but ash behind. Sylvia furrowed her brow, her voice laced with confusion. Less than well, that was a bit strange, don't you think? Greater than. Nodding in agreement, I replied, my tone tinged with a mixture of perplexity and urgency. Greater than, yeah, it's odd how quickly he came to terms with everything. But now, I suppose we must finish this quickly. There are still important matters that need attending to. Less than, I said as I turned towards the only one left of them who was unconscious. Perched on a sturdy branch, I carefully observed the hidden lair of the slave traders. The sun had long since set, allowing the moon to ascend and cast a gentle glow over the city below. The serenity of the scene seemed incongruous with the destruction that awaited the slavers. Drawing the bow I had acquired from Eleanor, I focused my attention on their fortress, a weathered and ancient castle nestled within the depths of the forest. Encircled by towering trees, it was a strategic location for concealing their illicit activities. 2 guards stood vigilant atop the castle, their eyes sharply scanning the surroundings for any potential threats. With a steady hand, I armed my bow and infused it with mana, enhancing its power. My gaze honed in on my chosen target, a man stationed below the castle. As I released my arrow, it soared through the night air with astounding swiftness, vanishing into the darkness before anyone could detect its trajectory. The man crumpled to the ground, a lifeless figure. Without hesitation, I shifted my focus to the guard stationed atop the castle. Another arrow swiftly left my bowstring, puncturing his chest and causing him to lose his balance, his body tumbling down the structure in an inevitable descent to his demise. Leaping gracefully from tree to tree, I traversed the forest until I reached the perimeter of the castle. Approaching cautiously, I noticed several traders busily packing their belongings into wagons, preparing for a hasty departure. Eager to gather information, I interrogated one of them, learning that news of their other hideouts near Eleanor had reached them, instilling a crippling fear of discovery and prompting their swift abandonment of this location. Spotting the unguarded slaves, I made a decision to confront them directly, opting for a different approach than my customary silent eliminations. Infusing my body with the electrical energy of lightning, I sprinted towards them with incredible speed, overwhelming them within seconds. As I began cleaning myself of their blood, the shrill screams of an approaching figure shattered the silence. Startled, I turned to face the source of the disturbance. The imposing figure stood before me, his muscular frame commanding attention, a bald head accentuating his rugged appearance. Gripping a sword as massive as a Shian blade, his solid orange core indicated his seasoned combat expertise. A wry smile touched my lips as I regarded him. "How about you surrender peacefully? You won't have any chance against me," I taunted, challenging his belief in his own invincibility. "Ha ha ha ha. Do you truly think a mere child can slay a warrior like me?" He jeered, infusing himself with mana, his aura reflecting his increased power. Lunging towards me, he pulled his sword back, aiming to deliver a devastating overhead strike. The clashing of metal filled the air as our blades collided in a desperate struggle for dominance. With a nimble leap, I evaded his merciless swing, narrowly escaping his lethal blade. Sensing his attempt to strike from another angle, I swiftly sidestepped, my instincts guiding my movements to avoid his powerful assault. The earth beneath us trembled with each impact as our swords clashed repeatedly, the clash of steel resonating through the night. "Have you learned nothing from what you witnessed?" I quipped, successfully avoiding yet another devastating blow. In a desperate effort, he resorted to a sidekick, though I smoothly evaded his attack, countering with a swift movement that sent him staggering backwards. Taking advantage of the momentary imbalance, I delivered a forceful punch that propelled him back, his body crashing against an adjacent wall. Momentarily unconscious, he lay sprawled on the ground, defenseless. Without hesitation, I quickly approached and delivered the final blow, plunging a dagger into his fallen form before he could regain his senses. After meticulously cleaning myself of the blood that stained my body, I cautiously approached the slaves who were confined to their cages. Their eyes filled with fear and desperation followed my every move as I drew closer. Their tattered garments barely covered their emaciated bodies, and their pale skin and bruised flesh were clear indicators of the malnutrition and physical abuse they had endured. The slaves, hailing from various races including humans, elves, and dwarves, were segregated into 3 separate cages. The humans were crammed into one cage, their faces etched with lines of exhaustion and despair. The elves, in another cage, appeared more fragile than the humans, their delicate features marred by bruises and scratches. The dwarves, in the final cage, were huddled together, their beards matted with dirt and sweat. As I approached the cages, I could hear their hushed whispers and muffled sobs. Their spirits seemed broken, their hope for freedom long gone. Greater than TCH, I thought I was too lenient with them. "Seal, can you take care of it?" Less than I told Seal, anger and annoyance seep into my voice. Less than high, master, greater than Seal responded obediently, less than I am searching for the souls of the people you killed. I have succeeded in finding them. What should I do with them, master, greater than. My gaze hardened, the coldness seeping into my voice. Greater than send their souls to Ultima and the rest of the demons. Instruct them to torture them mercilessly, less than I commanded, my intentions clear. Less than high, master, greater than Seal acknowledged, her attention locked on the task at hand. Sylvia remained oblivious to our conversation, for I was communicating with Seal through the soul corridor. Turning my attention back to the enslaved individuals, the slaves saw me and their eyes widened in surprise. They couldn't believe there was a child standing here amidst their captivity. An old elf, who stood at the forefront of the caged prisoners, approached me cautiously. Concern etched into his weathered features. He implored me, "Child, what are you doing here? You must flee immediately before those people find you." His worry for my safety surprised me. I had not anticipated such concern from these victims, for I expected them to focus solely on their own liberation. But this elf's protectiveness caught me off guard once more. I offered him a reassuring smile, projecting an unwavering confidence. "Do not worry about me. I am here to set you free. Trust me." As I spoke, my voice rang out loud enough for all the captives to hear, capturing their attention. The elven man, however, persisted, his voice tinged with anxiety. "No, you must go home. I am certain your parents are worried sick about you. Do not fret. It is not as if those people can harm me. I have slain them," I declared, allowing a touch of pride to seep into my words. Their expressions transformed into disbelief and shock, causing me to approach their cage and unlock its door with the key I had taken from the leader. "Here. You are free now," I announced solemnly, unlocking each of the 3 cages one by one. The relief that washed over their faces was palpable as some burst into tears and others embraced their loved ones, unable to comprehend their newfound freedom. The elves, filled with gratitude, approached me, bowing in reverence. "Thank you for saving us. I am unsure how we could ever repay you," the old elf expressed. "It is of no consequence." I waved off his apology with a gracious gesture. "But now you must make a choice." The captive's attention focused solely on me, their eyes filled with anticipation. "Will you choose to follow me, where I shall provide you with shelter, sustenance, and clothes? Or will you return home on the condition that you utter not a word about me to anyone?" The dwarves, harboring understandable reservations, immediately voiced their concerns. "How can we trust you? After all, it was your race that kidnapped us," one dwarf questioned, skepticism coloring his voice. An idea sparked within me as I met his gaze, the truth on the forefront of my mind. "Look around you. Not only elves and dwarves have fallen victim to these nefarious deeds, but humans, too," I pointed out, allowing a brief pause for my words to sink in. "You have passed judgment on humans based solely on the actions of a few. I implore you to consider both sides before you label an entire race as inherently evil." The elves chimed in, echoing my sentiment. "He speaks the truth. You cannot condemn an individual based solely on one facet of their being," one of them added. "As elves, we have no place to return to. Our village lies in ruin, making life in a human city incredibly challenging." After some internal talk between humans and dwarves, they all agreed that they would follow me. A mix of relief and gratitude washed over their faces as they embraced their newfound hope. I wasted no time in providing them with food, medical braces, and clothes, ensuring their immediate needs were met. Then, I told them to wait at the campsite overnight, assuring them we would be moving to a safer location in the morning. When I arrived at Kyle's house, I found him waiting outside, his face a mixture of relief and concern. The tension in his shoulders visibly eased as his eyes met mine. "Rimuru, thank goodness you're safe," he greeted me, his voice filled with genuine gratitude. I nodded in acknowledgement. "We've been anxiously awaiting your return. There's something urgent we need to discuss with you," Kyle continued, motioning for me to follow him inside. As we settled into the cozy surroundings, the remaining 4 individuals crowded around me, their eyes filled with concern. They bombarded me with questions, their voices overlapping in their urgency to know if I was all right. I smiled reassuringly at them, feeling the weight of their collective worry. "I'm perfectly fine, thank you for your concern," I assured them, my voice carrying a hint of warmth. Finding their seats, some chose to sink into the cushions of the sofa, while others opted for the firm embrace of the armchairs. Sensing the need to address their growing curiosity, I cleared my throat, capturing their undivided attention. "Firstly, I have decided to invite all of you to accompany me on this journey. However, the choice remains with each of you," I announced, eager to gauge their reactions. A moment of silence hung in the room as they absorbed the magnitude of my proposition. Then, to my surprise, they spoke in unison, their voices full of determination. "Okay." Caught off guard by their synchronicity, I couldn't help but chuckle softly. "Are you certain? I want you all to take some time to think it over," I offered, extending them the opportunity to reconsider. Kyle stepped forward, his eyes shining with resolve. "We've been discussing this even before you returned. We're ready to join you," he declared, speaking for the group as a whole. A wave of gratitude washed over me, knowing that they placed their trust and faith in me. "Very well then. Rest assured, we'll be embarking on this journey together," I affirmed, a sense of purpose fueling my voice. Anna, with her infectious cheerfulness, reached out and held my hand, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "We'll be under your care, Rimuru," she exclaimed joyfully, her optimism contagious. With a smile on my lips, I concluded the conversation, feeling a glimmer of hope in the air. "Very well. Rest well tonight, for we shall embark on our journey come morning," I concluded, relishing in the culmination of a day filled with both bloodshed and liberation. This motley crew, gathered together by fate, possessed the potential to become formidable forces in the days to come.